Middletown tonight. Thanks so much for your time, Nan.
Thanks, Caitlin. It's my pleasure.
Now, as a relative newcomer to the political scene, could you just give our viewers a bit of a background about yourself and why you decided to get in this race?
Sure. I'm a physician. I'm an ophthalmologist by profession. I practiced for 16 years in Mount Kisco. In 2005, I did retire from full-time practice in deference to motherhood. I have two sons, so two names I give myself are doctor and mother, and the third is businesswoman. From 1989 until 1996, I actually ran my own small practice, and so that's my small business experience. And the reason I'm running this year is because when the supermajority was elected in 2008, I felt quite concerned that there would be an overreach by the federal government in size and scope. And I think that is very much proven to be the case. Congressman Hall has voted consistently for programs that have come to reach ever deeper into our lives and into our pocketbooks, that are impeding employment and making our economy here in the state and around the nation suffer. So I'm running because I'm passionate about the freedoms that our Constitution guaranteed us, about the appropriate role and size and scope of federal government, and I'm eager to help solve the problems that this Congress has created.
Now, you mentioned Congressman Hall. I'm going to play you a soundbite from him. We had him on the show last night, and here's what he had to say about Republicans.
And if the voters decide they want to give the keys back to the guys that drove us into the ditch with 8 years of no regulation and crazy fiscal policies you know, the people who basically caused or allowed our financial and economic crisis to happen, if they want to give control back to them, I think it's a mistake, and that'll certainly be the argument that I make. But I hope they don't choose that.
So you heard what he said just there, kind of a back and forth between the two of you now. What's your response?
Well, it's a bit of a laughable trope, really, Caitlin. The economy has gone from slowing down, to be sure, and being at a certain amount of risk, and I would contend strongly that the Democrats actually had a tremendous hand on the accelerator and the steering wheel even before the 2008 election. But over the past 2 years, what they've done is to take the car and send it careening right toward a brick wall, which is what we're about to hit.
Before you go after Congressman Hall, though, you do have a primary opponent, and you're going to have to run in a primary election. Are you focusing at all on that race, and how are you feeling there?
Sure. I feel strong, and I feel very good. We do have a Republican primary. I have the conservative and independence lines, but we do have a Republican primary. I've been on the ground in our district for a year. I have been privileged and honored to meet with people, and not just Republicans, but the public, but certainly relevant to a primary, the Republican committees and active party members in every part of our district, in every one of our communities. I have taken them to heart, and I think they've also taken me into their hearts. So I feel confident that we are going to win the primary decisively and go on to the general.
And one of the big endorsements you picked up was from the National Republican Committee, who called you a young gun. How do you feel about that honor?
Yes. It's a tremendous honor. It's a competitive program for challenger races across the country. It has 3 rungs, and you have to work your way up the rungs by proving that you have a great campaign organization, presence on the ground, presence in media, volunteer organization, and of course fundraising. And to be designated a young gun really brings a lot of national attention and endorsements from major figures in the Republican Party. I've been privileged to have support and endorsements from Eric Cantor, Pete Sessions, Paul Ryan, Dave Camp, Tom Price, and Mayor Rudy Giuliani. So it's a tremendous honor, privilege, and real boon to the campaign.
Across the board for Republicans all over the United States, health care has been one of the big issues that they're running on, working, if they take back the House, to repeal that national health care bill. Would you be a part of that effort, and how far would you go to bat for this?
Sure. I firmly believe that we do need to replace that law that was passed in the dead of night in March against the will of the American people with a law that works. Repeal would be wonderful. That may not be possible. And if it's not, we will steadily defund and put questions into place about the provisions that we can, one by one. And the reason for that is that all of us honor the goals of having Americans, all Americans have access to affordable health care of good quality with affordable and portable insurance. And the problem is that this law really won't accomplish that. It will cost us dearly. It's already costing employers tremendous opportunities to revive our economy through hiring. They don't feel comfortable hiring right now, both because of skyrocketing insurance premiums in anticipation of new coverage mandates and also in anticipation of the new expenses that are going to be involved if they have to comply with an employer mandate because they can't afford to cover their employees anymore. And that's just one example of why we feel so strongly about replacing that law. And being a physician, understanding what patients need, understanding what providers need, will be a tremendous help as we navigate the complexities of trying to do this right.
If you are elected, however, you'll arguably be a very junior member and possibly still in the minority. What kind of a difference do you think you could make, and how do you think you're going to position yourself for the constituents to be in a better spot than Congressman Hall is right now to make a difference in Washington?
Sure. One way in which I will do that, I anticipate first that we will be in the majority again, but if we're in the minority, I will be a very visible and active presence in the Congress. Congressman Hall has been silent about the district's interests in terms of health care because the majority of his constituents opposed the bill, and yet he voted it into law. His other votes on spending and taxation have also met with disapproval. So on the Hill, I am confident that I will be a vigorous and active voice and an effective voice for making change that will really revive our economy and really serve the people of this country and this district far better.
Another thing you've been hammering Hall on, so to speak, is the proposed mosque and Islamic center near Ground Zero. You've been very vocal about that, sending out press releases about when you perceived him not taking action soon enough. What's your stance on that?
The Second Amendment certainly, the First Amendment certainly provides for freedom of expression in both the way in which the opposition to the mosque has expressed themselves and in terms of building the mosque. The leaders of the Cordoba Initiative do indeed have the right to build a mosque right there. But in view of the extraordinary reaction, the pain that the site itself represents, the building itself was struck by landing gear from one of the planes, it would be a tremendous gesture of true interfaith tolerance, which they profess, to allow for a synagogue and a church to be built inside the same structure. They could certainly accommodate that and remain right there, or a gesture of peace indeed, to say we understand those sensitivities, we understand what this site means, and we will move the mosque. Pope John Paul II did that in Auschwitz, at the edge of Auschwitz, when Carmelite nuns wanted to build a convent there, and there was an outcry from the world, really, about the implications of that, even though the Catholic Church had not built that concentration camp. Pope John Paul II was sensitive to that, and he was a great leader, and he asked the nuns to move the convent, not because they were wrong in building a convent, but because it was a way of saying, we understand, we care about your feelings, we care about those memories, and we want to live in peace with you.
Back to the mosque, though, your view sounds remarkably similar to your opponent's, Congressman Hall, saying they have the right to build there, but maybe they should move it to another location. What do you make of not only Congressman Hall, but in total 5 New York State Democrats coming out really against the mosque being built at that location?
Sure. I commend them for taking a stand that is consonant with the views of their state and their constituents. There's nothing wrong with that. We took a lead in that with our campaign, and I'm glad to hear Congressman Hall join us.
Now, speaking of your campaign, you are very well funded, most of it coming from your own pocketbook. $500,000 you lent your own campaign. How do you feel so strongly about it to put that much money up? And then how do you justify having that much of your own money in a campaign?
Sure. Well, Caitlin, a couple of things. Number one, actually, the majority of our funding does not come from me. We have raised, at this point, we've raised roughly $1.4 million thereabouts. And obviously, the majority of that comes not from me, but from other donors. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We have an enormous amount of support from people who believe in our cause as strongly as I myself do as the candidate. And indeed, having worked and saved and lived wisely and prudently in terms of our finances over the years, my husband and I felt that we could afford to make this investment in a campaign. It takes a lot of resources to run a campaign, a challenger campaign especially, if you will, and therefore we're happy to do it. And we have expressed that confidence, and my performance as a candidate has obviously inspired many, many more people, increasing numbers of people, people who have a great stake in the Republican future in particular in terms of that Young Guns designation, to join as well. So I think it's a win-win. It's a positive all the way around.
And then just lastly and quickly, the Democrats do have a slight edge on the Republicans in New York 19. Do you feel confident you'll still be able to win in that general election?
I do, very much. The sentiment in the district, and we're talking about going to stops at train stations, for example, commuter stops, which we've been doing for the past few months, going to fairs and parades, places, in other words, where the entire general public gathers. The sentiment is overwhelmingly that our incumbent, among many others, must be changed for someone new with new ideas, with ideas that are consistent with what made our country grow and prosper and thrive from the time of its founding. So I feel very confident. We have lots of friends among Democrats. We've received the independence line on the ballot, which Congressman Hall had in 2008. So I'm very confident that with continued diligent and nonstop work, nothing will come without extraordinary effort. I am an old-fashioned American in that way. I believe in hard work and sweat equity, and you earn a place and you earn what is good. And I am doing this for the people of this district, not for myself. We have a marvelous team. We have the best people in the world among our friends and supporters. And it's a tremendous year in which to run. It really feels like a revival, like a renewal. And we are going to make it happen. So it's a tremendous feeling. It's a positive feeling. It's not an overconfidence at all. We will work to earn this and deserve it.
Great. Thank you so much, Nan, for joining us, and I'm sure we'll be checking back in with you along the campaign trail. Thanks again, Nan.
Thanks, Caitlin.